Hey guys, and welcome to the channel. Glad you made it here. Today, I'm gonna rank all of my Pink Floyd records, which are 12 to be exact, and they range from their very early catalog until the wall. Yeah, keep in mind that this is just my opinion, and if your favorite album isn't my favorite album, that isn't a problem, you know? And most of the albums on that list have a case for being considered the best that they've ever released. And every single one of those albums would be in my top 100 albums of all time. Most of them, presumably even in my top 20, because Pink Floyd is my all-time favorite band. I've seen David Gilmour live once. I couldn't see Roger Waters live, sadly, but I'm definitely gonna do that in the future. Another thing said, I am neither a Waters or Gilmour guy, even though I enjoy the solo work of David Gilmour a little more. And I think they really needed each other to create those masterpieces that Pink Floyd has created over the last decades. The first three are going to be compilations, so they are out of the competition, but I'm going to show them to you anyway. The first one is A Nice Pair, which features the first two records of Pink Floyd, re-released in a double album. That's kind of nice. If you couldn't get them at the beginning and they weren't repressed, you could get a nice pair. You would have both of them. I have to watch out to grab this because there are boobies on. It's kind of a problem on YouTube. It's just, at the end, it's just a compilation. My mother gave me that as a present, I think, but it's already quite a bit ago. And I enjoy it because I definitely do want to own everything Pink Floyd related. All right, next one. Pink Floyd's Relics. On Relics you can find songs like Astronomy to Mine and Careful with That Axe, Eugene, which are songs of the earlier records. And there are some unreleased things, I think, on this, which makes it interesting, but I am more a fan of their later catalog. That doesn't mean that sounds bad. Like I said already, it sounds amazing, obviously, because it's a Pink Floyd record. So I enjoy Relics as well very much, but at the end it is just a compilation of all the stuff, and I like albums, especially from Pink Floyd, because they always do have a meaning behind them, and I like it when the song structure of an album is actually sorted out, and they don't just put the most over song, the song that will gonna be the single on top, and that's it. I like it if they think about how to place the music, and that's what Pink Floyd has been known for years. The last of the three is a collection of great dance songs. Why do I like a collection of great dance songs more than Relics? And that is fairly easy. It is the alternative version of Money. When Pink Floyd decided to release this record, they had some kind of dispute with their label, I think, and weren't able to use the usual version of Money. So David Gilmour went to the studio and recorded the version nearly by himself, which is amazing. The version is really good, and you can really hear the difference between the normal version, I mean in tone, not in the structure of the song, but just in tone, from the usual studio version on Dark Side and to this version. I enjoyed that very much, and it's a great song, a great album to spin when you've got friends around on a Friday night, if Corona lets you, obviously. Alright, now, the 9th place on the list, and bear in mind what I've said already. All of those 9 records are amazingly good, and just because I rank one of them lower than the other one doesn't mean that it has to be a worse album. At the end, it's just my humble opinion. Alright, number 9. Umagama or Umagama. Why did I choose Umagama? Well, first of all, it is a 2-record LP, which is obviously good. One LP is made out of live songs, which consist stuff like Astronomy to Mine, Careful with That Axe, Eugene, Set the Control for the Hearts of the Sun, and so on, so on. I, by the way, really adore Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. The song is obviously not a feature on this album, like not an original feature on this album, but it creates such an eerie vibe. A vibe that not many songs could create that I've listened to. The other side is more interesting, which is the studio album, which features songs like Grantchester Meadows, which is an acoustic, you could say ballad, but it isn't, acoustic song about the countryside of Britain, which is nice. But it didn't have the, that sounds crappy, but it didn't have the hit potential that further releases would have. But the band had to find their own sound, which they definitely will. Getting to finding their own sound, the next one definitely did exactly that. And and it hurts my feelings that I needed to put this record so low on the list, because it is an amazing record. Pink Floyd's Metal. This is an original German copy, which I'm very proud of. It's got the cover has seen better days, but the record is in a very good condition. And why is Metal so good? Or why did I place it so low on the list? It's got Echoes on, which is an amazing argument for making it one of the best albums that the band has ever released, which it is when I put it on 8th place. Echoes really showed the chemistry between the entire band, from the rhythm section until to the lead section, and especially in later live performances, the chemistry between Richard Wright and David Gilmour, which is incredible, since David hasn't played Echoes after Richard's death in 2008. I can't say anything negative about Metal. You could also argue that Metal is the first album where the band really found the sound that they would carry through the 70s. So, is it an amazing album? Definitely it is. But still, my number 8 ranked place, and maybe we could go a little bit deeper into that when talking about my number 7, which is Pink Floyd's A Saucer Full of Secrets, which is the second album in their catalogue and the last one to feature something written by Syd Barrett, which in this case is Jug Band Blues. I love A Saucer Full of Secrets, but I think if I wouldn't be drawn so much towards the song Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun, which is original on here, I think I would have ranked it underneath Metal. But this one song gives it just this little step up, at least in my world, above Metal. I really love the colors and the concept of the cover, by the way. It's really amazing. Yeah, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun and A Saucer Full of Secrets as well, especially the version that is on their on the concert film that they've done in Pompeii. The Saucer Full of Secrets version is marvelously good. And this is a record that I could, like all of them, this is a record that I would always tell you to listen to. If you haven't listened to a single one of those records, go and listen to it. It's really definitely worth it. 6th place has got a special place in my heart, because it is something that Pink Floyd never did again, and this is using horns. sounds weird, but that's it. Atom Heart Mother. First of all, I love the cows. Second of all, this is their last original release that I could find. I bought this in the summer of 2020, I think, and I was very happy when I found it, because I struggled to find an original, a German original copy, and I didn't want to buy a reissue, but I really liked the album and I wanted to listen to it, and now that I do own it. The cover, again, is alright, but the record itself is near mint, which is great. Yeah, but Atom Heart Mother, it is something special in their catalog, and it definitely reflects the sound of Pink Floyd and shows the sound that Pink Floyd would make famous afterwards. But it also adds some kind of little different nuances that you couldn't find on another album. Now we're in the top 5, and all of those 5 records would be in my top 25 albums of all time. There is no doubt about that. Keep that in mind when I rank them. So, first of all, number 5. The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Yep, the Syd Barrett album is on number 5 for me. Why is that? First of all, the next 4 are my favorite albums of all time, I could say that. You have to adore Syd Barrett. That's as easy as it gets. And it would be very interesting to what Syd would have been capable if he would have had an easier life. The story of Syd Barrett is a sad one, but we're going to get to that later on again. But this album really shows the genius that Syd Barrett is. And I've played this to my girlfriend when I bought it, and I didn't tell her which band this was. And I said to her, you know what, would you guess which band this is? And she guessed 1 or 2 times, and it both was wrong. And then I said, you know what, it's Pink Floyd. It's their first record. And she was like, what? That is Pink Floyd? And I have to say, she's a rock listener as well, but mostly a little bit of newer stuff. But I really brought her into this old music. But she just knew the obvious Pink Floyd songs like Money, Comfortably Numb, Wish You Were Here, stuff like that. But she was really into that, and the music is very catchy at some parts, something that the later catalog isn't that much, which doesn't mean that later catalog is bad, because you see the next 4 albums are all in the later catalog. Yeah, but alright, that is my placement for The Piper at the Gates of Dawn. Alright, now we reached the last four. The last four are the big four Pink Floyd albums, or you could say the big three plus one. You all know which albums I'm going to talk about, so let's just start. And the next one may surprise you. My fourth place goes to Pink Floyd's The Wall. 1979 release, the child of Roger Waters, obviously. Nick Mason and David Gilmour are featured as band members, while Richard Wright has just been a session musician on this album, which is a shame. But yeah, you can see the inside. This is the only one I'm going to show you, which has drawings by Gerald Scarfe on it, an artist that Roger Waters found, which definitely perfectly suits the entire album's aesthetics. And yeah, it's produced by Bob Ezrin, obviously, like most of their mid stuff is. The Wall definitely can make a case for being considered the best concept album of all time. I'm not going to get this in here because this record is enormous. It definitely can be considered to be the best concept album of all time. And I would partially agree to that, to be honest, but just partially. The Wall is not the easiest listening experience, but that's not what it's about. Definitely not, especially not when you're listening to a Pink Floyd album. It has got so much meaning behind it, and the placement of the songs and the entire writing or story arc through the album is just amazing. It's phenomenally good, and it definitely deserves a spot in the Rock Olympus, or whatever you want to call it. Alright, the top three. Now, the next three are hard to rank in my opinion, but I had to make a case. Number 3, in my humble opinion, keep that in mind, Dark Side of the Moon. Dark Side of the Moon is an album that has been in the charts for about 1,000 weeks, I think. That's going to tell you enough how good it is. The album cover could be considered to be the most iconic album cover of all time, maybe on par with something like Abbey Road. And the music on it is the birthplace of the phenomenally successful Pink Floyd. From the beginning to the start, it is not written for commercial success. It is written because they wanted to express something, and they wanted to just make good music, I suppose. Songs like Money and Time are songs that we are going to listen to in 100 years, or that our children or grandchildren are going to listen to in 100 years. So I couldn't tell you why I placed this on number 3. It's just because I have more of a bonding towards the next two records, but I'm going to talk about that as well. Dark Side is the first record that comes in mind when you speak to somebody about Pink Floyd. They'll presumably tell you, oh, it's this Prism one, if they haven't known them before. And that is amazing. It's also been a testing ground for most hi-fi systems over the 70s, because if you wanted to have a very, very nice produced album, there you go. And that's the reason why it has been in the charts for so long time. I mean, just think about that. It is one of the most successful albums of all time, but it didn't create a #1 single, something that Pink Floyd would just be able to do once, which is Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. Alright, the final two albums are my favorite two albums. Neck to neck, my favorite two albums of all time. So I had to narrow it down, and I really sat down and thought about which one I'm going to place on number 1. And my number 2 placement goes to Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. This album, especially this copy, has a special meaning to me. The name up here is the name of my mother, so this is something that she gave down to me, which is great. It has been my first ever vinyl record, years before I even got a record player, and years before I would buy more vinyl records. But I can't tell you how good I think Wish You Were Here is. In my opinion, it surpasses Dark Side of the Moon. Obviously it does, because I've placed it higher. Maybe it is the reason that my mother loves Shine On You Crazy Diamond, the entire song, all 12 parts, which I can definitely just agree on. It is, I think David and Richard both said and I think Nick as well, I'm not entirely sure, but I know that David and Richard said that it is the best thing, or that is the defining Pink Floyd song, the best thing that they've ever done. And I think you could just say that this is true. The cover is iconic as well, obviously, but most of the covers are. The track list from Welcome to the Machine, Have a Cigar, Shine on a Crazy Diamond, obviously, is just stacked of Pink Floyd classics, and the difference in tone between all of those is just great. It also, obviously, tackles Syd Barrett. Syd Barrett arrived in the studio one day when they recorded this thing. They haven't seen him for years, and he was bald, he was fat, he shaved all of his hair in his face, including his eyebrows, and most of the band didn't even recognize who he was. And you've got to consider that they all knew each other from childhood. And the second that, I know this sounds very, very hard, but the second that David realized who this was, he started to cry. At least tales say that. The tragedy of Syd Barrett made one of the best albums of all time. And that is a thing that I've said plenty of times, that if tragedy strikes, a genius can really make something marvelous out of it. Same could be said for Eric Clapton or other musicians. But okay, let's cheer it up a little bit. You already know which my number one is, which could be considered my favorite album of all time. Even though it sounds funny if I rank them number 2 and number 1 here. I wouldn't know, if you asked me which are my favorite records, I wouldn't know which one to place on number 1. So you see how hard this was for me. Yeah, it's Animals. First of all, I love the cover of Animals, and I love the concept of Animals, with having 3 songs that the album consists of, which are dogs, pigs, and sheep. They all tackle different classes in society, I would say, and our system as in general, which are the dogs, the ones that are fighting to get up, the sheep that are just the usual workers, and the pigs, which already are on top. So, and they definitely made their despise clear for the pigs, you know, not the rich people, but the people that got rich because they kept other people down. I think Dogs is my favorite song on here, even though Sheep is one that I've grown very, very fond of, because this thing is one of the few records that really runs non-stop over here. I don't know how much you can see from the wall behind me, but there are 3 cupboards which have 3 different bands on it, which is Supertramp on the left, which is one of the favorite bands of my girlfriend and my father as well. Then there is usually one that is changing right up here, which had Led Zeppelin on it. Now, at the moment, it features AC/DC, but David Bowie's been on there as well. I think you've seen that in videos, if you've checked this out. If you haven't, no, I'm not going to make some kind of advertisement for my channel. If you want to check this out, you know what to click. And I did the advertisement. Great. And the other one is the one that I haven't changed once, and this is Pink Floyd. And the only 3 records that stood there are my top 3 Pink Floyd records. So now that I've told you what my favorite Pink Floyd records are, do the same for me. I know that Obscured by Clouds is missing, by the way. It's just one that I haven't been able to find till yet. Tell me what your favorite Pink Floyd records are. I'm really, really interested, and you could tell me why I'm wrong, even though I can't be wrong because it's my opinion. Thank you for sticking with me, and see you the next time. Have a nice day. Bye.